If you'll join me for prayer and pledge. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Campbell is out tonight, so I'm sitting in. We'll go to item 2, will be approval of the minutes and agenda. Item 2.1 will be approval of the minutes from the April 2nd, 2018 meeting.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2.2, approval of the agenda from the June 11th, 2018 meeting.
Motion to approve.
First and a second, any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. We have no old business. We'll go to item 4, new business. Item 4.1, public hearing to hear the public opinion on an application for a variance to allow a storage shed in the side yard requested by Vicky Baker, property located at 7513 Chester Road, tax map 47, parcel 30, property zoned R20, parcel owned by Vicky Baker. So I need to close for a public hearing, or we just have it during the business? Okay. Anyone here to speak on the public hearing? Don't think so. All right, we will close the public hearing and move into item 4.2. Discuss and or take action on an application for a variance to allow a storage shed in the side yard requested by Vicky Baker, property located at 7513 Chester Road, tax map 47, parcel 30, property zoned R20, parcel owned by Vicky Baker. There's some staff comments I'll read in. Ms. Baker is requesting a variance from Article 5, Section 5, 103.5, yard regulations of the zoning ordinance to allow her to place a 10-foot by 24-foot storage shed in the side yard of her property at 7513 Chester Road. Accessory structures such as storage buildings are required to be located in the rear yard behind the house and at least 5 feet from the rear and side property lines. Ms. Baker's property is shaped like a bowl with steep slopes at both the front and the rear of her property. Additionally, as shown on the application packet, photographs taken by her staff, her house sits along the level rear portion of the property, with the rear wall of the house approximately 12 foot from where the property begins to slope up towards the rear boundary line. There is also a roughly 10-foot by 20-foot deck off the northeastern corner of the house. The rear portion of the property slopes steeply up to the property line and is heavily wooded with mature vegetation. Due to these topographic reasons, there is very little room to place the 10-foot by 24-foot storage shed in the rear yard per the zoning ordinance regulations. Ms. Baker, I assume? Just making sure you're present. If you have any comments, we're welcome to hear them as well.
She pretty much covered everything.
Perfect. Anyone have any questions or discussion?
I have a couple of questions regarding the staff comments. The last sentence about says there's very little room to place the 10 by 24 storage shed in the rear yard per the zoning ordinance. Does that mean there is no room to fit it in toward the back of the house? Because it looks like there's a 12-foot buffer from the back of the house to where the topo slopes up, if I'm reading this correctly. The rear wall of the house is approximately 12 feet from where the property begins to slope up. With this being 20 or 10 by 24, would it not fit within those parameters?
The only concern is that the building code requires a 5-foot separation per the building inspector from the rear wall to an accessory structure, so that's really going to shrink it down.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things that, as you guys know, we have some standards for variance that we apply to any one of these requests, which are 7 of them. I have a couple of questions relative to those that I hope you can help me out with, Ms. Baker. What will this building be used for? And this is in regards to item 3 in the standards for variance.
I have a storage unit over on Highway 96 that I'm wanting to empty out.
Okay.
It'll be used for that And if I have room, I'd like to set up a sewing table or craft table out there. I don't know that I'll have room.
Where would the entrance to this be? As I'm looking at, I'm supposing you've seen this, would the entrance be toward the street, or would it be on the side between the house?
Toward the street.
Toward the street, so in the very end of the unit?
Yes.
Okay. The, the existing storage facility that's there, just a curious question, because I remember when this came before our board before, and locating that in the front of the house where it is now was not approved and was subsequently moved to the rear of the house. And I think you've built since then, right?
Yes, sir.
You've made some changes. But I do have a curious question. How did this existing storage facility end up back in the front of the house in violation of our ordinances?
You know, I had 3 buildings at one time before we tore the old house down. When we started tearing the old house down to build a new one, all 3 of the buildings were moved to the side running parallel with each other. I have since sold 2 of those buildings, and that's the last building that I have. And that's just where it ended up at.
Did anyone approve that?
Well, John Bledsoe, when he came the last day, it was June 23rd, to do the final inspection and give me the certificate of occupancy. He never said a word about that building sitting in the wrong spot and that it had to be moved.
Okay. Just a curious question for staff is, clearly that was an oversight, but even when we went out and took pictures, did no one notice that that was in violation, being it's in the front of the house, the existing structure? That is in that picture right there?
Oh,
Did,
we definitely noticed it.
okay.
From the minutes from the December 2014 meeting where this was discussed, where the variance was denied, I believe there was a 60-day window to have it removed, so.
And it was subsequently moved to the rear of the property.
Okay.
I'm just, my question is, how did it end up back in the front of the property against our ordinances?
Right.
And John Bledsoe didn't see it, and we took pictures recently, apparently, and still didn't see it, or make note of it, or what have you. I guess I'm just kind of curious how that slipped by so many eyes.
Oh, I noticed it was there when I went out about 10 days ago. I didn't make it a part of the report since it's a different issue, I suppose.
Yeah, and it is, granted. So regarding that storage facility, so Article 5 indicates that accessory buildings, provided that one such building may be permitted, which may occupy a maximum of 25% of the rear yard area, shall be located at least 5 foot from the side and rear property. So this would make 2. So do you have plans to get rid of the other one?
No, sir.
Because the way I read this, you're not allowed to have 2. Unless I'm missing, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. The way I read this, and Kristen, you may help me out here, it says one such building may be permitted.
Right. Actually, there was an ordinance amendment in 2007 that was never included in our zoning ordinance, which is one of the reasons that the Planning Commission is working to revise our documents to get them in order. In 2007, there was a change to the provisions regarding accessory structures, garages, and carports. And accessory structures are still required to be in the rear yard, 5 feet from the property line, but they can cover, you're not limited to one, you can have 35% of your rear yard.
That could be 6.
Right.
Right.
And that's probably something we'll want to look at as we move forward with updating our book, because if you have an acre of backyard, you know, that could be 15,000 square feet of accessory structures. So, but it does date back to 2007, so it's pretty outdated.
Is that in somewhere in Article 5 amendment?
Yes, it was just never, it was never put into the actual, I've got a printout of the ordinance,
Okay.
the amendment that was, yeah, actually passed by the Board of Commissioners, but when it happened in 2007, for some reason, the staff at the time just never actually added it into the current zoning ordinance. So you can go back and find it. That's the situation on 5 or 6 amendments, unfortunately, that were just never put into the book. Yeah,
Those in the book.
I know. Well, that's why we've hired our engineering firm. They are working on that as we speak, actually.
Okay.
Additional notes or questions?
Well, let me, not to muddy the water, but does the existing building play into this now? I know that's not really what the variance is about, but I guess part of my question is, it's there. Can we even consider that part of this since it's not included in the variance request?
The location of the existing one?
Yeah.
Right, it's not part of this request. I suppose, I don't know that this board can deal with that at the moment. I mean,
Okay.
I suppose a complaint could be filed on that one, or you could potentially approve this contingent upon that being moved into the rear yard,
Yeah.
since there seems to be some room.
Is that a possibility? Would the other one be able to be moved into the rear yard or adjacent to the new proposed structure?
Once that I get the new one brought in, then yes, I can move that one to over on the other side of it, farther back.
Right, so you'd have the house, the new structure, and then the existing ones, they'd just be kind of lined up side by
Right.
side, right? Okay. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. I will say as it relates to standards for variance, the only one that I can see that might offer relief would be item 1, which would be the exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the particular piece of property. That I guess the question becomes, is it creating hardship? So, I think that's all I've got.
There. Any additional questions or discussion? Anyone like to make a motion?
Based on the facts presented, I make a motion we approve the variance.
So we have a motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Can we amend the motion to include moving the shed that's already there?
We could, or we could ask Mr. Blade if he'd be interested in amending his motion to.
I so move.
So now the motion on the table is to approve, contingent on moving the existing building, or the existing shed over to be next to it. So do we have a second on that?
Second.
First and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The motion carries. If you will,
Thank you
just
very
make
much.
sure and,
Baker, good to see you
yeah,
again.
thank you, Ms. Baker. If you will, just make sure and get that existing one moved. So hopefully we don't see it again, next time, or hopefully it won't be a next time, but.
Can I wait to move it after I get the other one brought in? That way I know how much room,
I
more
don't see any
room.
reason why not. Yeah. Y'all are fine with it, right?
Yeah. That's good.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
Will the front of the new one, is it really going to be like I'm seeing here? In other words, it's not going to come past the front of the house?
It shouldn't.
Okay,
That's my goal for it not to be, because
Okay.
I don't want it that far out.
gotcha.
I'm
Okay,
gonna have them bring it back in as far back in as it can go.
gotcha.
The way I did the measuring, the front of it should be a foot behind the front corner of the
Okay,
house.
cool. Good.
Thank you guys very
Thank
much.
y'all.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 5 is adjournment. I'll accept a motion to adjourn meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved.